Hello everyone, welcome back to the Kara Animations channel. On this occasion, the storyline of the Donghua Soul Land series, second season, episode 148 will be continued. The story begins with Yuhao's father, Daihao, delivering a secret mission to the group. The mission is called the Emperor Assassination Mission. Daihao then explains in detail their primary targets. Although Zhu Tianran is still very young, he is now considered a great hero of the Sun Moon Empire. In his role as Emperor Zhu Tianran, wields immense authority and holds complete control over the course of the battle. This is the main reason why they must kill Zhu, as only by doing so can the great battle be ended quickly. Daihao added that after Zhu Tianran's death, there would be severe internal turmoil within the Sun Moon Empire. The vacancy left behind would spark a power struggle among the nobles and high-ranking officials. Furthermore, according to intelligence they had received, Zhu Tianran had already been blessed with a son. The child was born to Zhu Tianran's consort, a woman named Juzi. The presence of this crown prince further reinforced the indication that Zhu Tianran would be extremely cautious in maintaining the stability of his throne, as he now had an heir to protect. Hearing this explanation, Yuhao was shocked. He didn't expect Juzi to actually give birth to Zhu Tianran's child. Responding to Yuhao's surprise, Daihao continued his explanation. According to information gathered by their spies who had infiltrated the Sun Moon Empire, a major event would be held in 7 days. The event was called the Heavenly Tradition Ceremony, which was an annual imperial ritual. This ceremony would be led directly by Zhu Tianran and would be held in the southernmost region of the empire. News of this event was what they would exploit as an opening to launch an attack. The plan was to assassinate Zhu Tianran at the ceremony's location. To accomplish this mission and break the Sun Moon Empire's power, they would divide their forces into 2 groups. The first group would be led by an elder named T. This group's task was to attack the armory located on the outskirts of the Empire's territory. The armory was located quite far from the ceremony Zhu Tianran would be attending. The hope was that by causing a major commotion at the armory, the Sun Moon Empire's main forces would be the empire would be forced to deploy a large force to deal with the disturbance at the armory, weakening the defenses around Zhu Tianran. The second group was the main assault force, led by Dubusi. This group would launch a direct attack on Zhu Tianran with the primary goal of killing it. Dubusi would be traveling with a companion named Teto on this mission. However, Yuhao deemed their plan flawed. He considered it too crude and unconvincing. This was because the Sun Moon Empire had the full support of the Rusuchi sect, a powerful sect boasting to limit Douluo level experts. Yuhao explained that a single limit Douluo like Long Xiaoyao would be enough to cripple Dubusia and his entire group. Furthermore, distracting the empire by attacking the armory would also be considered ineffective. The Sun Moon Empire possessed immense military power, so disrupting a single armory would not be enough to weaken the security at Zhu. In other words, Yuhao considered this plan to be extremely weak and risky. After a strategic debate, Daihao assigned Yuhao a special task. Yuhao was to lead all troops to infiltrate the Sun Moon Empire, specifically towards Mingdu City. Yuhao accepted the task, but he made one condition. Yuhao demanded that all troops obey his orders throughout the journey. Only after arriving in Mingdu City would Yuhao relinquish leadership. This meant that obedience to Yuhao was only valid during the journey to the target. Upon hearing this request, the representatives from the dueling empire immediately objected. They argued that Yuhao lacked experience leading such a mission. However, the representatives from the Xingluo Empire immediately defended Yuhao and expressed confidence that he was capable of handling the responsibility. Others remained skeptical and directly asked Yuhao if he was truly confident in taking command. Before Yuhao could answer, Dubusi immediately spoke up in Yuhao's defense. Dubusi stated that he had complete confidence in Yuhao's direction and had no objections whatsoever to Yuhao being appointed as their commander. Afterward, Dubusi asked all members of the squad to prepare, as their mission would begin the following day. After the official meeting ended, Daihao invited Yuhao and Watong to a private meeting. In the closed-door meeting, Daihao frankly stated that if it weren't for the imperial request, he would never have asked Dubusi or Yuhao for assistance in this mission. This was because the mission carried a very high level of danger. However, because Yuhao's role was deemed so crucial in this assassination mission, Yuhao had no choice but to get involved. Daihao then sternly reminded Yuhao that Yuhao's task was limited to being a guide or escort for the imperial side so they could safely infiltrate the Sun-Moon Empire. Once the entire imperial army had successfully infiltrated, Yuhao's task would be complete. Daihao asked Yuhao not to interfere any further, even if Yuhao sensed any signs of danger. He was ordered to flee immediately for his own safety. Yuhao was curious as to why Daihao would say such things. He sensed that Daihao and the other imperial officials were deliberately hiding something. However, Daihao admitted that he couldn't explain the details. Daihao simply pleaded with Yuhao to follow his instructions without further question. After the private meeting, Watang expressed her interest in Daihao's seemingly caring attitude to Yuhao. Watang also noticed that Yuhao himself was responding to Yuhao in a warmer manner than before. In response, Yuhao confirmed that his perspective on his father had indeed changed slightly. After visiting his mother's burial site, Yuhao saw that Daihao had openly acknowledged that Yuhao's mother was his legal wife. The involvement of various military affairs made it impossible for Yuhao to immediately forgive or strengthen their relationship instantly. However, indirectly, the relationship between Yuhao and his father began to warm again, even though Daihao himself still did not know the true identity of Yuhao as his biological son. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Dubusi and Tianyang were having a conversation. Tianyang briefly touched on Dubusi's question, asking why Dubusi valued Yuhao so highly. Dubusi replied that he recognized Yuhao's abilities because of Yuhao's extraordinary fighting prowess. Although his cultivation level was still at 89, his combat prowess was comparable to a title Dalu. Yuhao's mental strength was even comparable to a super Dalu. Tianyang was surprised by Dubusi's explanation, as Dubusi was actually able to see that far into Yuhao's potential and strength. After that, the two of them discussed the political situation and the battle situation they would face in the Sun-Moon Empire. The next day, all parties involved in the attack on the Sun-Moon Empire and the Zutianran assassination mission were ready to depart. After a brief farewell ceremony, they immediately departed for Sun-Moon Empire territory. On the way, Dubusi requested that Yuhao open his spiritual sight. Yuhao accepted the request and immediately opened his spiritual detection to the entire squad. Everyone immediately received Yuhao's spiritual sight, and they were all greatly surprised. Yuhao's spiritual sight range was incredibly wide, reaching a radius of 10,000 kilometers. Not only could they see in detail, but they could also see from a 360-degree angle without any blind spots at all. This made everyone acknowledge Yuhao's extraordinary mental powers. They now began to understand why Yuhao was so highly regarded in the Xinglu Empire and also by Dubusi before, for his mental powers were truly extraordinary. During the journey, Yuhao and Dubusi also touched on past events. Dubusi admitted that he had once been very interested in Yuhao's abilities and wanted to recruit him. Unfortunately, Dubusi had now been surpassed by Master Mu'en, who had made Yuhao his final disciple. Dubusi also admitted that he harbored a dislike for Master Mu'en, as he had lost his brother due to his actions in the past. Yuhao sensed a different feeling from Dubusi when he spoke about this, a deep sadness. Yuhao suspected that this feeling likely stemmed from Dubusi's longing for his deceased brother. Fortunately, Dubusi had now become a wiser person. He considered the past matters as old matters that no longer needed to be brought up. Now, it was better for them to focus on the mission at hand. Yuhao accepted this view. To avoid detection, Yuhao then used his second soul skill, the camouflage technique. With this ability, he removed the presence of all members of the squad from the Sun-Moon Empire's surveillance system. This allowed them to infiltrate the Empire's territory unnoticed. After successfully entering the Sun-Moon Empire's territory, specifically Mingdu City, they began each member had their own code language for communication, making their disguises difficult for the enemy to detect. Yuhao and Watong disguised themselves as ordinary citizens and wandered around the city pretending to be walking around. During the reconnaissance, Yuhao and Watang were surprised to find that Mingdu City had fully recovered from the devastating explosion that occurred previously. In fact, the city was now equipped with even tighter security measures than before. Yuhao wasn't too surprised, as he already knew that the Sun-Moon Empire's academic system was highly developed. Furthermore, they had a special hall dedicated to soul tool development, managed by the imperial institutions. This place was called the Hall of Glory. While walking around, Yuhao saw troops from the Sun-Moon Empire giving an announcement to the people regarding the commemoration of the Celestial Tradition ceremony. However, the civilians seemed uncomfortable with this, as the imperial troops' demeanor was overly threatening. The troops were even heavily armed. Yuhao also noticed that the imperial troops were wearing full armor. This surprised him a bit, as he had never seen such armor before. Yuhao realized that his knowledge of the Sun-Moon Empire as a whole was still quite limited. That evening, after Yuhao finished his city tour, he met with Dubusi asked Yuhao what he had found during his walk around Mingdu City. Yuhao replied that he hadn't seen anything particularly interesting other than the Sun-Moon Empire's increased security. Dubusi then relayed important information about Zhu. He informed him that Zhu Tianran's newborn son had been named Suyun. After the full moon, the child would be crowned Crown Prince. Yuhao was puzzled as to why Dubusi was telling him this. Dubusi then explained that, with the arrival of the Crown Prince, the courtiers and nobles of the empire had begun to shed their doubts about Zhu. Previously, Zhu Tianran had been considered a cripple due to his child. Thanks to the birth of the Crown Prince, the empire no longer doubted Zhu. The Crown Prince, Su Yun, would eventually succeed Zhu. Furthermore, Zhu Tianran's wife, Zhu Zi, was also considered to possess great skill in military strategy. Zhu Zi was even appointed as the supreme commander of the Sun-Moon Empire's military forces, having full responsibility for the entire military forces of the empire. After conveying all that, Dubusi then shared very important information with Yuhao. Dubusi revealed that in fact, the mission they had discussed earlier, namely, the mission to kill Zhu Tianran, was not the only mission that existed. There was still another mission that was deliberately not announced publicly. Hearing this, Yuhao immediately became even more interested. This information was in line with his suspicions all this time, because previously he had suspected that there was something deliberately hidden behind the assassination mission. However, before Dubusi could continue his explanation about the other secret mission, unfortunately, the story of the Donghua Soul Land 2 series, episode 148, had to end and continue to the next episode. To find out how this story continues, viewers will have to wait for the next episode, which will air next week. Thank you to all viewers who have watched this video to the end. If you enjoyed this video, please support us by liking and subscribing. See you again in the next video.